The wind that night didn't sound like wind. It howled like something alive, clawing at the windows, rattling the gutters, pushing against the house like it wanted inside. Snow slapped the siding in hard waves, piling against the porch steps until the railing looked half buried. I was standing in the mudroom, shivering so hard my teeth clicked. My fingers were numb, my jeans wet from trudging outside earlier to bring in firewood for the third time. We had a heating issue, and Dad refused to pay for a repairman because real families survive winter, not complain about it. I was 27, old enough to know better, but still stuck in a house where survival meant doing what he wanted, when he wanted, no matter how cold or dangerous things got. Evie, my sister, stood beside Dad near the fireplace wearing a brand-new fur-lined parka, the kind with the embroidered crest on the sleeve. Soft beige color, thick collar, glossed finish. Expensive, warm, perfect. Dad had bought it for her 2 days earlier. The tag was still on it. She spun once, letting the fur catch the firelight like she was posing for a magazine. "What do you think?" she asked him, smiling. "You look like someone worth protecting," Dad said, patting her arm like she was the family treasure. Then his eyes slid to me. Soaked jeans, chapped lips, fingers trembling from cold. And that warmth vanished. "You're dripping snow all over the floor," he snapped. "I was outside bringing wood in," I said quietly. "You told me to." "And you can't wipe your feet before walking into my house?" he barked. I swallowed the words rising in my throat. My skin burned from cold. My legs felt stiff from the wind biting through denim. "Dad," I said carefully, "I need a coat, a real one. Mine has holes all through the sleeves." He waved a hand. "You don't need a coat. You barely go anywhere." "I'm freezing," I said. "I can't keep going outside in this." My voice cracked a little, not from fear, from the cold creeping into my bones like a warning. Evie snorted. "You're so dramatic. It's just winter." "It's a blizzard," I whispered. Dad reached behind a storage bin and tossed something toward me. It landed at my feet with a dull flop. A bundle of threadbare rags, old flannel shirts, ripped sleeves, scarves that looked like a dog had chewed through them. "There," he said. "Wrap yourself in that." I stared at the pile. "That's not a coat. It's more than you paid for," he growled. "I didn't pay for Evie's jacket either," I said softly. "That one cost worth every dollar," he snapped before I finished. The look he gave me wasn't annoyance. It was disgust. "Better to freeze than waste wool on you," he said, his exact words, spoken with complete calm, like they were obvious, like it wasn't cruelty, just truth. Evie giggled, adjusting the soft fur against her neck. "She wouldn't look good in real coats anyway," she said. My stomach twisted, my fingers tingled, the cold mixing with anger until it felt like both were burning me from inside. "Dad," I said, forcing steadiness, "I'm going back outside. The storm's getting worse. I need a real coat." "Then freeze," he said. He didn't yell, he didn't glare. He just said it the way some people say pass the salt. Casual, dismissive, final. Something in me collapsed a little at those words. Something else hardened. I walked past him, ignoring the way Evie smirked at my wet clothes. The front door groaned as I pushed it open, and a burst of freezing air slammed into me, stealing my breath for a second. I stepped onto the porch. The wind cut across my face so sharply it felt like glass. Snow whipped sideways, covering my hair in seconds. The cold drilled through my ripped jacket sleeves, biting straight into skin. Behind me, the door clicked shut, and through the window, I watched them move back to the fireplace, warm, glowing, safe. While I stood in the storm like something disposable, my breath came out in hard clouds. I hugged my arms tight, but the cold still crawled through the thin fabric, chilling my bones until my jaw trembled uncontrollably. I could barely see 2 feet ahead. The snow came fast, piling higher, swallowing the porch steps beneath it. My boots crunched through fresh layers as I forced myself forward, each step heavier than the last. Dad's words replayed in my mind. echoing louder than the storm. Better to freeze than waste wool on you. The blizzard roared back in agreement. I stumbled trying to reach the firewood pile, fingers numb, body shaking so violently I felt like I might fall. My vision blurred for a moment as wind slapped ice crystals across my face. I crouched by the woodpile, trying to lift a log, but my hands wouldn't close properly. I couldn't grip anything. My limbs felt stiff, unresponsive, like the cold had seeped into the joints and locked everything in place. I dropped to my knees. Snow soaked through my jeans immediately. The cold shot up my legs like electricity. My hands pressed into the drift, disappearing under it. I gasped, not from fear, from the shocking realization, if I stayed out here much longer, I was actually going to pass out. And Dad wouldn't come looking. Evie wouldn't check. They'd sit by the fire, eating warm stew, laughing, drinking hot chocolate. While I froze, my head dipped for a moment. I forced my eyes open before they fluttered shut. I pushed myself back to my feet, swaying, gripping the side of the shed to steady myself. The wind screamed. The blizzard thickened. The porch light flickered behind me. I stared at that house, that warm window, that fire I wasn't allowed to sit by. Not because there wasn't room, not because there weren't blankets, not because they couldn't care, but because Dad had decided I wasn't worth warmth. Something shifted. Inside me. Slow at first, then sharp and clear. This wasn't a family. This was a place where they left me to freeze just to prove my place. A place that didn't want me warm, didn't want me safe, didn't want me alive unless I was useful to someone else. Snow swirled around me, sticking to my eyelashes, freezing the ends of my hair like tiny beads of ice. But I wasn't thinking about the cold anymore. I was thinking about the first time Dad said I was the extra child. The way he always introduced Evie as my pride. How he once told me that warmth should be earned. And standing in that storm, half frozen, soaking wet, shaking so badly my teeth hurt, I made a decision I had never made in my life. This storm would be the last one they used to control me. I might have been freezing, but I wasn't weak. Not anymore. The storm calmed by morning, but the cold in my bones didn't. Even wrapped in 2 blankets I'd stolen from the laundry room, I couldn't stop shaking. My fingertips were still pale, stiff, and throbbing. The skin on my legs burned from where the cold had seeped in too deep. Every breath felt like it scraped the inside of my chest. But the house? Warm, silent, alive. When I stepped into the kitchen, the smell of bacon and pancakes hit me like an insult. Dad stood at the stove, flipping food for Evie while she sat at the counter in that same fur jacket, still pristine, still perfect. Neither looked at me, not until I spoke. I almost collapsed in the snow last night. Dad didn't turn. Don't be dramatic. I was outside for 20 minutes with rags that were soaked through in seconds. He shrugged, sliding eggs onto Evie's plate. You should have moved faster. Evie snickered, stirring her hot chocolate. Or grown thicker skin. My jaw tightened. I stared at the steam rising from their plates. Real warmth. Just inches from them, miles from me. You wouldn't even open the door, I said. My voice cracked, not from fear this time, but from something sharper. Clarity. Dad finally turned, wiping his hands on a towel like a king dismissing a peasant. You want a better coat? He asked. His tone wasn't curious. It was mocking. I didn't answer. It's simple, he continued, leaning against the counter. Get a real job, pay your own bills, buy something yourself. Stop looking at me like I owe you anything. You owe me the same humanity you give her, I said quietly. His face hardened. You aren't her, he snapped. You never have been. Evie smiled over her mug like that was the best compliment she'd ever received. I swallowed the burn in my throat. I brought in firewood for hours. I made sure the pipes didn't freeze. I kept the generator running. And, Dad said, raising an eyebrow, that's called doing your part. You're not owed a jacket for that. Then why does she get one? Evie chimed in without looking up. Because I don't whine. Dad smirked. There it is. And just like that, the truth shoved itself into the open. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how cold I was. It didn't matter how hard I worked. They had decided what I was worth, and it wasn't much. I pulled out a chair and sat down slowly because my legs still felt weak. My hands trembled, both from the cold and from something else rising inside me. Dad, I said, I'm serious. I think I got mild frostbite. My skin is still numb. He rolled his eyes. You're fine. Don't fish for sympathy. I'm not. I held up my hand. The fingertips were still blotchy and ghost pale. Evie leaned forward, peering at them. Oh my God, she gasped. For a second, I thought maybe she cared. Then she grinned. Should have stayed inside. That's on you. Dad laughed. My stomach twisted. They didn't feel guilty. They didn't feel worried. They felt entertained. I stood up, pushing the chair back so it scraped the tile. You really don't care, I said. I could have passed out in the snow and you would have shrugged. Dad shrugged now. People toughen up or they don't. That's life. That's not life, I said. That's cruelty. He pointed at me with his fork. Cruelty is expecting special treatment when you bring nothing to the table. You're lucky you even have a roof. Evie chimed in. Honestly, Dad, she should just move out if it's so terrible. He laughed harder. Move out? She couldn't survive a week. Their voices blended. Superiority, mockery, coldness. The same pattern I'd ignored for years. But now it landed differently. Because last night wasn't just abuse. It was proof. Proof that staying here meant gambling with my life. I picked up the threadbare rags Dad had thrown at me the night before. They still smelled like mildew and cold. I dropped them on the counter in front of him. I'm done, I said. He frowned. Done with what? With this house. With you deciding if I freeze or not. With you deciding what I'm worth. Evie snorted. Good luck out there. Dad crossed his arms. You walk out that door, don't come back. I walked out into a blizzard last night, I said, and none of you came looking. That silenced them. For one small second, they had nothing to say. Then Dad muttered, Don't exaggerate. You weren't dying. I could have been. But you weren't, he snapped. So stop fishing for sympathy. You're fine. That was the moment I realized something important. They didn't want me alive. Not dead either. Just useful. Useful enough to bring firewood. Useful enough to run errands. Useful enough to be blamed when something went wrong. Warmth, care, safety, that was for Evie. He turned back to the stove as if dismissing me, as if discussion was over. But I didn't move. I watched him, the jacket on. Evie's shoulders, the rags on the counter, the warmth of the food they didn't offer me, the frostbite creeping into my fingertips. And I didn't feel helpless. I felt focused, because a person can endure a lot, insults, chores, guilt, blame, but not the moment they realize their life is in danger. And last night taught me one thing. If a blizzard couldn't kill me, leaving this house definitely wouldn't. I took one step toward my room. Dad didn't look up. Where do you think you're going? He muttered. To get what's mine, I said, and to make sure you never get to decide my worth again. His head jerked up. Evie paused mid-sip, but I didn't explain. I didn't raise my voice. I simply walked away, one steady step at a time, knowing exactly what I was about to do, and knowing they would never see it coming. I walked into my room, grabbed my bag from under the bed, and stuffed in what little I owned, a couple of sweaters, my work shoes, my documents. My fingers still tingled painfully, but the movement kept my mind sharp, focused. I wasn't just leaving. I was taking something with me. Not money, not revenge through humiliation, not anything poetic, something practical, something Dad actually depended on. I opened the closet and pulled out the generator manual, the one Dad made me memorize because he didn't have patience for that technical crap. The same generator that kept the pipes warm, the fridge running, and the house from turning into an icebox during storms. He never learned how to maintain it, never wanted to, because he had me. Not anymore. I grabbed my small toolkit, the few parts I'd bought myself over time, and the repair log I kept, all the things that kept this house alive during winter. Then I walked back into the hallway. Dad's voice hit me instantly. "Where the hell do you think you're going with that?" He started toward me, face reddening, Evie watching from the counter with wide eyes. I held up the manual and binder. "These are mine," I said. "I bought the replacement parts. I fixed the generator all winter. You didn't lift a finger." "You can't take that!" he shouted. "We need that." I stopped in the doorway. "No," I said. "You need me." He froze. "I'm leaving," I continued, "and the only reason this house hasn't frozen over is because I kept the generator running. You told me I brought nothing to the table, so now I'm taking back the nothing you depended on." He lunged forward like he wanted to snatch the binder from my hands. But I stepped back. "You lay one finger on me," I said calmly, "and you'll wish you hadn't." He stopped mid-step, breathing hard, chest rising and falling with anger and panic. "You can't leave us like this," he yelled. Evie finally spoke, voice trembling now. "Dad, the storm last night almost froze the pipes. We need the generator." He ignored her. His eyes were on me, the one person who had kept this place running. "Please," he said, voice cracking, a single word, not from love, from fear. "You can't just go." "I already did," I said. "Last night, when you threw rags at me and told me I wasn't worth wool." His face twisted, guilt, anger, confusion all battling. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Evie hugged her fur coat. Dad shivered even though he stood near the warm kitchen. But me, I didn't feel cold anymore. As I stepped outside, Dad's voice broke. "Come back! You can't leave! You're all we got!" I didn't turn around. "Should have thought of that," I said quietly, "before you left me to freeze." I walked down the steps. Snow crunched beneath my boots. My breath formed clouds in the air. My bruised fingers throbbed. But they were mine. My body was mine. My choices were mine. And for the first time in years, so was my safety. Behind me, I heard the door slam, then Dad's muffled voice cursing, then Evie crying because the house was already starting to cool without the generator running. But I kept walking, not running, not shaking, just steady, because winter wasn't my enemy. They were, and I finally walked far enough away to let the cold belong to them instead of me. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.